really thank you for coming along this Wednesday evening. We've got about 90 minutes or so with each other, and hopefully it'll be an engaging evening. That's the plan anyway, if everything goes to plan. And let's just bring up the first slides. So here we are. I'm hoping that you can all see that. We are spending this evening looking at match analysis, part one. It will be a little bit tongue-in-cheek. We have to, in these situations where we're often going to see pictures of people who are familiar on the screen, so people that we know, that we have to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek. So there is me as head referee on the last international duty that I had, which was Seville last summer. So 15 months ago, with Tony, who is just a fantastic referee from Spain. This is the first part of a two-part series as we go into the new year, and hopefully it will leave you ready to get back onto court and ready to kind of crack on with your boccia career. Now let's get this right. So the plan for today, plan for this evening is to run through these areas. We're going to do some introductions. We are going to look at some aims and objectives. We are going to put a few disclaimers in there as well, just so you know the context that we're coming from. We're going to look at some basics to get us kind of talking, to get our head back in the right space of refereeing. We're then going to look at something called the Dunning-Kruger Effect, which some of you might be familiar with, breaking it down into the fundamentals of refereeing before we end up into the match analysis. What we'll probably find is those first 5 or 6 areas we're going to cover pretty swiftly. We're going to get through those pretty quickly, but hopefully that should give us a good foundation in order for us to proceed for the rest of the evening. So, introductions. This is me. Many years ago, back in 2005, when I just became an international referee. Since then, I've officiated over 30 internationals. I've head refereed at international competitions, been to World Championships, 2 Paralympic Games. And the reason I'm saying all of this is not really to blow my own trumpet in a kind of a humble brag, well, not really humble brag, just a brag. It's more to say at this point, this picture on the left-hand side of young me, I'm trying to think how old I was, probably 21 or something at that point. I probably knew more rules on this day than I do right now. That's not because of COVID, that's just how things go. So me, back in 2005, without the experience that is on the right-hand side there, probably knew more than me with that experience. And it's that whole thing, isn't it? When you've done your GCSEs or your A-levels or you've finished your degree, like you're full of knowledge, you're full of information, but we don't really know anything about the real world, do we? I mean, we probably don't recognize that at the time. I can tell you at 21, I did not recognize that at the time. I thought that I knew everything and I had all the experience. Well, the truth comes out over the years, doesn't it? I might have known everything, but I absolutely did not have the experience. To start with a little bit of philosophy, Aristotle, the more that you know, the more you realize you don't know. And I don't know about anyone else when it comes to boccia in particular. When you first maybe get into it, you think, hey, it's a simple game, this, isn't it? It's get your ball as close as you can to the white ball. And in principle, in theory, it's a bit of a simple game. Then you start to play it and then you realize, oh, maybe it's a bit harder than you think, or there's a bit more to it. And then you end up doing some refereeing. Someone says at club, oh, will you hold a paddle? Will you just look after this court for me? And you go, yeah, of course, that's fine. And it's all fine. And then they say, oh, do you want to go on a level 1 course? And you go on that, all day level 1 course, and you realize how much there is to know or yet to know. And that's only the beginning point of us in our journey. And I wonder if there'll be anyone else on this call that had that kind of idea of you thought that you knew it, and then you went on a course and you realized that you didn't know half of it. or what you thought you did know was maybe a little bit wrong or misguided, or you just made something up because you didn't know what to do at the time at club, and that's what you've always thought about. But actually, there's a better way of doing things. Not looking at anyone in particular, but I can see Catherine there with her sunny background. And I remember we've often had, when I've been up to Scotland, had some of those discussions with in Scotland around the way that the Scots do things and the way that the English do things. And again, if you're ever at an international competition, even if you're just observing the way the Spanish do things compared to the Brits, the way that the Eastern Europeans maybe look at things, or the Americans, and we all have these different slight nuances, these slight different flavors. And you suddenly realize, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, yeah, I didn't realize you could do that. And that continues all the way through your bocce career, all the way through that experience. The more that you know, the more that you realize you don't know. And to prove that point, here I am, the person that knew more than I did right now, measuring like an absolute fool on the bocce court. I knew everything. I knew every single rule that there was. I'd literally just done the test. And yet, look at that measuring technique. Very poor, very poor. I didn't have the experience in order to be able to put all of that knowledge into practice. And maybe that's what we're feeling like a little bit like today. You might have had some of that experience, you might have had some of that knowledge, but it really feels quite distant to, the last time we were on court together. So hopefully through this, you'll see, we'll start to kind of focus your mind back onto bocce, back onto officiating, and seeing where we can progress our game, even though we're not necessarily on court. So the point of this evening's sessions really is to ease you back in. When Natalie and I sat down to do some prep for this last week, I think that I had high expectations as to what we were going to do. And I was reminded by Natalie that was probably not a great idea for a number of reasons. One is, I haven't been on a bocce court for months and months and months, if not probably 12 months, or certainly it was the end of last year. So I'm not going to be, really tight, really sharp on these things. I haven't been through COVID looking at my rules. I'm sure many of you haven't been looking at your rules either. So we're going to ease in together. There's also on this call, we've got a real range of people. We have international referees, national referees, we've got ex-players, we've got coaches. We've got a real range of people with a real range of experience. We also have people who are level one. Maybe they just started, maybe they've just qualified, and because of COVID, they've just not had that experience so far. So really, this is going to be about easing you in, reminding you of that bocce referee mindset. But the main focus really is to look at pressure management. And that's going to be the focus of these two match analysis sessions, is going to be around pressure management as a referee. And we're going to look at that by exploring some of the fundamentals, to remind ourselves of some of those fundamentals. And those fundamentals were the things which I didn't know in 2005. You can tell that from my measuring technique. Did not have a good fundamental measuring technique. Knew everything, did not have the fundamentals. So if we can do those kind of things and have a good chat about bocce as we go along, and watch a little bit of bocce, then hey, that'll be a good evening as far as I'm concerned, and hopefully you're concerned too. For a lot of this, we'll actually get you to have your microphones off, especially when we're doing the match analysis. We tried to toy with different ways of doing this, but we're going to do this as a group. And actually, when we're doing the match analysis, I'm going to ask you to take your mics off and to talk over the top of the match analysis that we're doing. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're seeing, as interactive as that might be. Now, for some of you, that might feel like a really big barrier, and that's fine. Listen, take on board, take part in that way, but be active in your listening, in your the way that you're processing it. If you do feel confident enough to talk, then absolutely go for it. I would love to hear your thoughts as we go through this evening. couple of disclaimers. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. I haven't put Steve on there just because he's an example of a mistake. He is not. He's a wonderful, tremendous referee. And I think certainly was due to join us. I don't know if he has joined us, but he was on the list at one point. We are going to have people that we will recognise in some of the match analysis and some of the photos. Some of the stuff that they do might be excellent. Some of it might not be excellent. Let's always keep in mind throughout our discussions that everyone makes mistakes. And I can tell you, Steve is not one of the examples of that we're going to be using tonight. So I could use this photo here. So please, when you're talking and analysing and looking at the footage, remember everyone makes mistakes. These are people that we may know, and we're not trying to do this, or I'm not bringing attention to them because I have a particular problem with them or whatever it might be. It's just these scenarios came up. In fact, they were actually sent through as well as some suggestions to look at, and I've picked a couple out to look at. So if we always have that in mind, everyone makes mistakes. So, basics. What makes a good referee? We're going to break you into your first breakout groups. We're going to give you probably how many have we got on the call in the end, Natalie? 16 or 17?
15, probably I think, take me and you out.
Okay, if we do groups of 4 and no, did you say 15, sorry?
Yeah, so 5
Let's
groups.
Go 3 groups of 5 then.
3 groups of 5, yeah.
Take your time to say hello, introduce yourself, and maybe say a little bit as to your experience, what level that you're at. And then start to consider this, not just what makes a good referee, what makes a good referee great. I am going to assume that we are all good. We are all good referees, but what makes someone a great referee? So we're going to split you into breakout groups, probably if we're doing 3 groups of 5, probably for 10 minutes to introduce yourselves to people and also to consider this, and then we'll come back together. So what makes a good referee great? Off we go. You may need to click join as Natalie sends you the invite. Everyone back. Good. Okay, we're going to try something now. So hopefully, if you go and move your mouse over the screen, you'll see a little green drop-down thing that'll appear. And in that, there should be an option to annotate. If you click that, you should be able to write on my screen. If you have, if you can come off mute at this point if you want to chat about things as well. Start writing. You could either do it by typing, I think, or by doing it freehand. Start writing on the what makes a good referee great on the nice big white section. And if no one can find what I'm talking about, do come off mute and let me know.
Where was it again?
No, Richard.
Oh, someone's got it. Excellent. So if you go towards the top of the screen, you'll get a drop-down menu, and annotate should be a part of that, or one of the options.
Oh, yeah. And then what?
Then you should just be able to start writing on the screen with your mouse or your finger or typing.
Oh, yeah, got it.
Well, we got consistent, confidence, being prepared. That's an interesting one. We could definitely cover that. Observation skills. Whilst people are still writing, who said observation skills? Whoever it was, do you want to come off the meet and talk me through your thinking there? Because it's a really good answer.
Can't see the little button.
You found it. Was it Vivian? Was it you? Was it you that said observation skills?
No, I can't see it. Oh, no, whoever it is, they put it up. It's all right.
Okay.
Right, you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Peter, was that you?
That was myself. The reason I put observation skills is, there's so much happening around you. You need to be really sharp to try and catch everything the athletes are doing, the timekeeping behind you, everything, really. That's
Yeah. Yeah, it is one of those things, again, it's so simple in some ways. So you've got a head and you kind of keep an eye on it, but it's that so many layers that means that actually you have to have kind of eyes and ears, especially when you're at an international and you don't actually know what they're saying, but often by the tone in the voice, you can understand what they're trying to get across and whether there's any kind of some foul play going on there, even if you don't speak the language. Ownership of the court. Who said that one? If anyone said ownership of the court, do you want to just come off mute and explain what you mean by that one?
Hi, Richard. Sorry, it's Sarah. Yes.
Hi, Sarah.
So it was being on the court, being in control of the court, but not being intrusive within the court. So that you're there, it's being run, it's being organised, but you're not the main part that the players can get on and they can play.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, isn't it? I think often in other sports they talk about the best type of referee is the one that you don't notice. And I think that's definitely true when it comes to bocce, but yet it's not because you don't notice because they're passive. You don't notice them because they own the court, they're not intrusive. And I think there is a difference. I think that's a really good point. There's a difference between owning the court and being intrusive on the game and the players. I think we've got some other things like knowing the rules and confidence. I think they're things that make you a good referee. I think it's those couple of things that have come out there that shows the difference between a good and a great. Is that one that's, I can't quite read it in green, does it say personality? Yeah, if that is right, do you want to, whoever said that, come off mute and just talk me through that, because that's a really interesting point. Silence. I'll give him another second. If you said personality, come off mute and let me know what you're thinking.
It might be David, he's non-verbal.
Okay. Was it David? Okay. If that was you, I'm not quite caught up. I can't see everyone on my screen when I'm sharing. I can only see a few people. So if someone is frantically waving around.
Sorry, Richard, it's me. My thing went on mute.
Oh, go for it.
Hey, who said personality?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did, because I think what I said in our group was that I think it's like all sports. I think that great referees are referees that come off and you don't really notice they've been there. They've done their job. They've just done their job, and that's what, in my opinion, makes a great referee, is somebody who knows the rules, gets on with the players, is able to communicate with them in good ways and bad ways, and I don't mean bad ways, in ways where they have to communicate something to them, and their personality is that they are, they come off the court and everybody goes, oh, he had a good game. I didn't realise that he was there, sort of thing. So,
yeah, it is interesting because what we don't want are robot referees, and again, you probably notice this the most at internationals because you have different flavours of refereeing from different countries. I've known a few people that have gone through the international course that have done it relatively recently, and one of the compliments that I think that we've had, the feedback that we've had back, is we knew they were British. They were a British referee. They've got a British style of refereeing, and I take that as a real compliment to all of our, because we want consistency. That was one of the words that came up. We want to be consistent, but we're not robotic. Like, how do we have different, bring our personality across, the way that we communicate, the way that we hold ourselves, our body language, the tone that we take. These are all the things which allows us to bring our personality to court, but hopefully in a consistent way that allows us to own the court, but yet not dominate the court. I think some really good points there. So we're going to move on. Now I don't know how to get rid of the annotations. That's interesting. How to clear all drawings. There we go. Good. Hopefully that's cleared all the annotations for you as well. The next element that we're looking at for this, now we've kind of looked at what makes a good referee great. There were a couple of people that said there about knowing the rules. That was definitely one aspect to it. But what I want to introduce you to is the Dunning-Kruger effect. I came across this when kind of reading up around sports psychology in particular, around officiating and the notion of progressing to guru status. Now, I'm not suggesting we're going to have bocce gurus, although that picture of Steve, he is as close to a bocce guru as we have in this country. So if there is one, he is it. But what I want to talk about here, just to bring this to you, is the Dunning-Kruger effect. And this is the idea that we have different paths. We often think that going from inexperienced to experienced is linear. It's a nice straight line that goes up. The more that we do, the better we become, the more confident we are, and we are closer to guru status just by the more that we do. And actually, that really isn't true. I remember a talk that was done around something called the messy middle. You can look this up. Again, it's a sports idea concept called the messy middle. The example that they use is Weight Watchers, I think it is, off the top of my head. And the idea of Weight Watchers, certainly in the past, historically, have kind of preached a linear do this, and I probably should have go down, shouldn't I, if it's Weight Watchers, and your weight will go down, down, down. And often people end up getting a little bit, they lose the track of it, because somewhere in the middle, they've done everything, but they haven't lost that pound, or they haven't made the progress that they expected. And that's called a messy middle. And we have that when it comes to refereeing. We have this curve, which is kind of a bit of a messy middle. We start by knowing everything. So on the left-hand side, we know everything. And we end up at the top, as they call it, of Mount Stupid. This is not my language. This is their language. We peak Mount Stupid. And actually what that is our confidence is so high. We know everything. But we haven't gained that wisdom, that experience to be able to deal with everything. And what happens after we hit that high, but yet don't have that wisdom experience? We have a crash. And we end up in what they call the valley of despair. And then it's often a really, really long road. And it's really interesting. Even you probably could argue, if you got a ruler out, that the top of the curve on the right-hand side is still possibly lower than the highest peak of confidence on Mount Stupid. Because actually, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And I tell you what, peak of Mount Stupid, there we go. There I am, 2005. I knew everything. Confidence could not have been higher. Experience could not have been lower. Very inexperienced, the peak of Mount Stupid. Fortunately, I didn't have a mistake that put me into the valley of despair, but I soon realized after this competition that actually my estimations, the amount that that my ability levels were significantly lower than everyone around me that had been doing it for a number of years. Again, I know some of you who've either become new international referees over the last couple of years, or just new referees. Again, it's that idea of you thought that you knew everything, then you go to a competition and something happens, or you see something and you realize, I had no idea what to do in that situation, which of course is why we all have head referees, isn't it? Because head referees should be towards that guru status. They should have seen everything and dealt with everything. Do they know all the rules all the time, instantly? Well, I can testify that that's not the case. We have our rule book with us at all times, and we refer to it in those moments, because we do not know all 100 pages front and back of the international rules, but we know our skills and our experience that we can fall back on, and then we can pick up that knowledge and apply that knowledge. So really, one of the things that we that I want you to consider really is, on this curve, when it comes to officiating, where are you? Have you hit the valley of despair and you had a really rough match the last time, and then we've hit COVID and you just don't know whether you're going to go back to refereeing? You can't really see how you're going to progress. Did you have a level 2 assessment that you just couldn't get past, and that you don't know whether to continue? Or have you had an experience where you have been at Mount Stupid, the peak of that, and you've ended up in the valley of despair because of a mistake that you've made? Just very quickly, I'm going to pop you back into your breakout rooms. It might be different breakout rooms. Hopefully it's not. Just wonder if one or two of you could share a story as to where you were at or where you had been on this curve. If we can jump back into breakout rooms just for a few minutes, that would be great. Just for 1 minute, is someone going to be brave enough to come off mute and maybe share a story that you shared in the group? Does anyone be brave enough to share a story as to where they are at, or an issue or something, an experience that they had?
Do you want me to do mine?
Go for it, David.
I just said in the group, I got into bocce because my partner's daughter was a Paralympic athlete. Always loved sport, couldn't believe the ability, and just blown away by it. So I did a level 1 referees course, thought I knew all the rules and thought I knew everything. Was doing my level 2, doing my last assessment. It was a BC3 team game. I had a lines guy behind, didn't put his hand up for me as far as I could see it. Then he shouted that the ball was something wrong with the delivery. I didn't stop it and didn't even realise it. Went in and kicked the head everywhere. And it was my last assessment for my level 2. And any confidence I had went down the toilet. I just thought, I can't do this. I'm useless at this. This is ridiculous. Luckily, Steve Ferber was there with me, picked me up, said, you refereed the other 3 ends fine. Just forget about the first one, and carried on to say I was going to do level 3 in April, but obviously this insane madness stopped that. But yeah, I kicked the head everywhere. I didn't have a mental picture in my head to be able to put it back together. I relied on the two captains of the teams to lead me. And I think that was part of what I was saying about personality. I think they realised that obviously I'd made a mistake, but I was willing to learn from it, and so they helped, and we restarted and carried on. So, but it was just I didn't have a clue what to do at that time. You could have taken me off there. I didn't know where I was or what I'd done. So. Oh, well, that's very honest of you, David. Thank you for sharing that. But yeah, often those falls can be pretty steep and can be pretty hard. So thank you. Is there anyone else? One more maybe. No one's brave enough. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, so this kind of sets the tone as to where we're at, as we kind of look to move forwards with the rest of the session. So what the main aim of these 2 sessions combined is to move you along this curve. Maybe you feel like you have got the knowledge, but you haven't had the experience. What we would love you to do is to be able to jump from that inexperienced confidence levels all the way through to somewhere where you have that wisdom, so you miss out Mount Stupid. That's the aim. That would be the dream scenario as a bocce referee, is to never have to climb that mountain. So the aim of over these next couple of sessions is to kind of move you towards the right, towards guru status. And I think ultimately what we need to get right are just fundamentals. David kind of alluded to it in what he said, was that at that point where this mistake happened, we all make mistakes. It was then, what do I do next? How do I do it? And at that point, kind of had a mind blank and didn't know whether he was in the room, I think was what he said. And so it's one of those things where the fundamentals are what's really important. And you realize that it's how you referee is more important than knowing everything. That goes back to my point that I was trying to make at the very start. At those first pictures, 2005, I probably knew more than I do now. But that actually isn't important in being a great referee,
being a good referee, it is important. Being a great referee, it's actually about the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are ultimately body language, procedure, and communication. Those are the three fundamentals. And I tell you what, and Jan and I think Lauren's done here most recently, who've done the international course. When I did the international course, it wasn't really about procedure. It wasn't really about process. It was about knowledge and getting everyone that was there from all nations to have just like a same foundational amount of knowledge, which was useful. But actually, we didn't really talk about body language. Yes, there was procedure in the sense of what do I do when it's, you know, between ends, but nothing more than that really as to good processing. Communication, there was no real advice and support around how to communicate well, how to breach the language barrier. That may well have changed. That's certainly what it is now. And if I'm honest, if I reflect back on our level 1, that's probably the case in our level 1. We very much focus on knowledge, hard skills is what we would call them, rather than the soft skills. And the more experienced you become, the more you realize soft skills, body language, procedure, communication, are the important thing, and are the most important thing when it comes to managing pressure. This was my first time ever, national, regional, and it was in my first international when someone refused to sign. They did sign in the end, which is great. But this moment, unfortunately, was caught on camera, which is delightful. Thank you to my friend Nicole from the Czech Republic who caught this picture. He just wasn't going to sign. The issue was a language issue, a difference in rules understanding. And I have to say, over the last 15 years, the sport has professionalized so much. In 2005, the Hungarians were still using gutter ramps made from guttering at an international level and being successful. It wasn't that they were poor at it, they were very good at the art of gutter ramping. But things have moved on and that gap is different. So how do we manage pressure? What do we have to do in order to make sure that we can progress the game, be able to move forwards with the game, and be able to get people to sign? So before we go into match analysis, what I want you to do is just to come off mute. We'll just do it coming off mute rather than going into breakout rooms. And what I'd like you to do, just think about, and if you can, just say, like, what do you feel, or what gives you the most pressure? When do you feel the most pressure as a referee? Is it a measure? Is it when you're starting a game? Do you have an example where it's got the better of you? That's kind of, David shared that a little bit. But I just wondered, just if you come off me as we start to go into the match analysis, where I want you to be talking freely, where do you, as an individual, when do you feel the most pressure as a referee?
Measure.
Measure. Why is that, Catherine?
Oh, just because people are, looking at you and they can be critical of you and everything like that. And the more you think about it, the more nervous you get, and then it gets, hate it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Having to decide if I need someone to come over and help me measure, could I do more for myself? Just everyone's watching you. You're doing several look-arounds of the head of the game, and it's just all eyes are on you. They're waiting for you to make the correct decision, which, is great. But also, just knowing, just making sure you want to get it all right for the players, and they're all watching you. There's a lot of pressure, lots of intensity.
Do you think that's different, Rob, as a wheelchair referee compared to a non-disabled referee?
Truthfully, well, I don't know because I've got nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
I do find there's a lot of pressure though, because it can delay the game quite a bit, because obviously I've got to make sure I've put my hand up, head referee comes over, or whoever is assisting with measuring. I feel like it can add quite a lot of additional time. So I feel like there's a lot of pressure to try and make sure I make the decision on the court myself. So almost do anything to not have to call someone over. And right. I just feel like, trying desperately not to delay the game for the players.
Yeah. Thank you.
Whilst obviously getting it right.
I think 50% of those athletes would favour something called over. The other one, It depends how the game's going as well. I feel the most pressure as a referee, I'd say, again with the measurement, I've got a good kind of eye in the game, but again, it's just those wider ones. So we say just a bit iffy. Go with your gut and just be confident as well when you're doing it. That's it. You say presence and things will go smoothly as well.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe one more?
I would say also measuring, especially at the end of the end. For example, if the time is running and, you know, doesn't really, it's just, I don't know, 15 seconds left and you have to be sure and you're really not sure, you know, sometimes it's just look like 1-1 and you need to be sure because the players expecting you to be sure, and yeah, the time is running, so that's the kind of example.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. Yeah, so measures always hard, but most of the measures are done when the time is off. It's often your choice, but there are occasions, especially in tight games, where you're coming towards the completion of the end and the player will ask for a measure whilst it's on their time. And yes, you have to act quickly to respond to their request, but also you have to do it safely because, yeah, if you make a mistake either in the measure, listen, you make the wrong call because you didn't quite get the right angle when you were measuring because you couldn't get into that perfect position, or if you end up nudging a ball or knocking the head in any way, then yes, that could have such a much more serious consequence. So you want to do right by the players who's requested it, but likewise, you don't want to do anything wrong either. And often when you add time into it, that's where some of those pressures can really come. Excellent. So we've talked about these situations now. We're going to go into some match analysis now. And again, we're going to watch one end. I'm probably going to put it on 1.5 speed, just so we kind of get a chance to go through it. What I want you to do is just to really comment on the referee around these soft skills, this body language, procedure, and communication. We're just going to run through it. It's the first end. I think it's a BC3 match, BC3 pairs match. So we're just going to run through it and just want you to talk over it. What do you see? What are they doing well? What maybe could they improve on? Have you noticed there's potentially a problem, but yet it hasn't yet arrived yet in, I don't know, position or communication or whatever it might be. So we're going to go through this. Again, just remember that disclaimer. We're not doing this or picking on this referee because I think that they are a bad referee in any way, shape or form. It's just a really good example to show these ideas of soft skills in use or maybe not in use. We will see. So let's bring it up.
Well, this is a world champ.
But they do have a domination in their region in South America.
So I'm going to pop it on mute. What I really would like you to do is to just start talking about what you're seeing. Again, remember, we're looking at body language, procedure, communication, and we could do this right from the start. And I'm going to stick this on 1.5 speed for us.
Thank God it wasn't me upstairs watching this game.
Sorry, what was that?
Thank God it wasn't me upstairs watching this game. You know, and then I'm judging again. My step ahead of them.
So what do you think? Jack ball's been played. What are we looking at when it comes to those soft skills around positioning and things like that? Good, bad, ugly? Let me know. If you want to put it in the chat, if that would be easier than coming, then please use the chat function. That would be fine as well. And I can share what your thoughts are. But yes, it'd be good if a few of you could shout out.
I would say good positioning. She's in front of the jack and intercept with a 1 step in to stop the ball if there's a violation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good starting position. It'll be interesting to see if she keeps that position. as we go through the end.
I would like my lines person to be between box 2 and 3 also, just because of where the ramp is positioned at the back, or a switch. Okay.
Yeah, that really has become a tendency over the last probably 3 years, I would say, has been around both players setting up, and it's often relatively late until we know who's actually going to play.
Mm.
She'd be better off moving the penalty box nearer her.
Okay, now I would say that positioning is not necessarily great because she's going to have to run across if box 4 plays.
This was one of the things I remember when I did my trade in 2005. I was always taught before there was really any training that referees stand off court. That was what it was back, in the 90s and noughties. And it wasn't actually until I became an international referee where standing on court was a thing. And that was what I had to bring back. And I was in a situation where I had to do a David Seaman. See, I told you it's 2005. There's no reference. David Seaman across the court in order to save a violation. That was a lesson I learned very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think
also means that players have to look away from the pitch to look at her to see what she's signalling.
Okay, that's a good point.
bounce on now, I'd be moving position closer to Jack ball now, just in the line to catch the ball.
Well, you can see by the Brazilian in box 2 the angle of her ramp. She basically can go stand right up to the line of that ramp because she's never going to interfere with the ball. So at a minimum, she's at least 1 meter out of position.
Okay.
Outside of her position, what about her posture, her eye direction? Oh, we've got a bit of movement.
She's moved into a better position, but still could be.
I still think she's too far away.
Didn't feel the need to measure. It's good. Overhead cameras always adds a little bit of pressure, Catherine. And you're talking about measuring. Imagine having an overhead camera on you. Definitely adds it.
Fortunately, I never had to go in the centre court.
She's still in the wrong position.
But her posture is good, and she's got her paddle behind her back. She's not fidgeting. She's looking engaged.
Is this the match where they
don't give any no spoilers, Sarah? No spoilers. If you think it's a match,
okay.
Keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
We're watching this for a reason, I suppose, aren't we? So
that's what happened. Yeah.
His chair's on the line, isn't it?
Yeah, looks like it.
Come on.
So the head's starting to build up. Still positioned quite far off to the right-hand side. I think that box number 2 still has a ball left, so it's not that she hasn't played. is signalling pretty quickly, which is good. It keeps the efficiency of the game up. So a ball is played, she's coming to a judgment pretty quickly and getting on with it, getting on with the time. So there's very little downtime. As a head referee, we really look for that. What we want is for a game to last the minimum amount of time, obviously without being rushed, allowing the players all the time that they need, but for referees to be as efficient as possible in our actions and how we deal with things. Let's watch ahead on this one. Let's just see where her eyes go throughout this shot. Oh, we're not going to get a wide shot, are we? Let's see. We'll try it on the next shot, shall we?
Good job.
Anything you observe from that? There's two little things that she does often as well. After a ball is played, she is very quick, but she does do a little shuffle. She just does a little foot shuffle after every shot, but which is fine. People do that as long as they're not moving a lot up and down the court. See if you can notice it on any of the shots. Did anyone pick on it somewhere? I think I talked over someone, whoever that was. Feel free to shout up again. Right, there we go. Did we all see it? It was in 1.5 speed, so I would not. If you missed it, then that's fine. I'll look at it a few times.
Somebody just walked in my room, so I didn't see it.
That's all right, neither did the referee. But anyway, that's a different thing. So let's go back to the previous shot. What I was looking for is when they take it, watch the head. Watch the referee's head. Where does it go? Is this the same shot? It will be. Yes, it is. Sorry, previous shot. Don't know if I went back far enough.
You want to go back before that blue ball's by the jack, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. Here we go. Is it? So what about her head movement?
Does she need to follow the ball straight away?
She followed the ball. Yeah,
but
she followed the ball.
Yeah, Daniel mentioned that in the chat as well. He spotted that one.
Sorry, I don't have the chat open. I've got all my windows are full right now. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, she follows the ball. And if you had picked up on that a little bit earlier in her body language, she does that consistently. It's not just on a one-off. 99.9% of the time, you never become unstuck from following the ball. And you want to see where it goes. You want to see the shot. Great referees do not follow the ball. The reason being is this violation. See that stool has just been moved on the line, picked up by the liner, and of course the Portuguese. Watch her head.
Yeah, she didn't see it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good call by whoever the liner was.
That's
Lauren.
Lauren. Yeah, Lauren.
Hard to see her past them, though, he's huge.
So we'll see it
She's
again.
got no chance to stop it from where she is.
I mean, she's got more chance than the position she was previously in, but I mean, we're talking 2 or 3 seconds from when the hand goes up to when she reacts. The reason for this was because she's watching the ball, not the liner. A great referee will keep their eyes on the liner whilst that ball is coming down the ramp, looking for any flinch. We don't really care the line of the ball. We want to know where it ends, and we kind of want to know at the point that it hits another ball. But that bit between when it leaves the ramp and it comes to rest, we don't really need to know about. We need to have eyes on the liner. Okay, so we've made a mistake. That happens. We all make mistakes. I think I've said that quite a few times this evening. Now, through this next bit, we know what the mistake is. She missed the call. She wasn't looking at the liner, and even didn't see it from the Portuguese, whose hand went up pretty sharpish as well. So this is where now we're going to go through this. I am going to speed it up because it is painful in places. We're going to speed it up slightly to go through this. And what I want you to do is just to call out. It'd be great to hear a few other voices as well. Even if you're brand new to this, hopefully by looking at the body language that she's projecting, the procedures she's putting in place, and how she's communicating with the players, with the liner, you'll be able to make some comments around the things that you're seeing. So we're going to run now, but the real focus on the body language, procedural communication now that a violation has happened and has been missed, and that pressure is starting to mount. So run 1.5 times here.
She's looking everywhere else but the players to see what to do.
Yeah, she
And
doesn't seem
therefore
very
she's
confident.
not, yeah, she's not being very confident.
Okay, good. She's looking in different locations. Let's have a look again. So we know because of the replay which one it is. What did you notice there just as she picked up the ball? What did she do?
She looked back at the players.
Yeah, look back at the players. What else did she do? Watch her hands.
She
moves, picks up the ball.
No, like end finished. Kind of went.
End finished.
finished, yeah.
Finished indicate.
I want out of here. This is the end of the end.
This is the end of my life. This is one of these situations where it is you feel that, and us watching it when I watched this, I watched this a few times. Each time I watched it, I felt more pressure watching it because I kind of knew what was coming. But you can see that when we talk about procedure, things are starting to unravel a little bit, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
We can see from her body language that confidence level is getting towards the valley of despair. How can we resolve this? Well, actually, we can resolve this through good communication. You know, we can make mistakes, we can get a bit twitchy, and we all have got our poker tells, haven't we, of when we get a little bit nervous, a little bit unsure about it. But how can we rectify this situation, salvage this situation? It's communication. The problem is the communication maybe with the wrong person there, with the timer is now going down. 1 penalty ball.
Could she have not communicated with the lines person a bit more?
Aye. Lost.
Oh, there she is.
Oh no, yes.
Yeah. So who actually called for the referee to talk to her?
Me. Rob.
Sorry, no, I was meaning, yeah, Lauren was actually the one that said, look, I can't hear you, I need to speak to you. Because at that point, the referee is communicating over the top of players to the liner. Not great etiquette anyway, just in general. The other danger is by standing behind assistants, you are encouraging them to turn, because we're all polite people. Even the Portuguese are polite. They want to turn and make eye contact to you. And again, the difference between a good and a great referee is that positioning at that point where you are communicating. Lauren brings her over to the side to communicate.
Well, if you're talking over the top of the players, they're going to get involved in the conversation as well and going to put their 2 pence worth in anyway, aren't they? Because you're involving them if you're talking over the top of them.
I am more than happy for players to get involved. Who am I not happy to get involved?
Assistants.
I have no problem with players speaking their mind and giving their opinion, as long as they're also willing to hear my opinion and my view of things.
As a referee, if you've got that situation and Lauren was trying to get you, you shouldn't be talking over the, like you were saying, talking over the players until she knows what they've decided. Then they go to the players and talk, surely.
Yeah, so exactly. Lauren brought her out to one side, or they met to one side and had that brief discussion. We're now back up at the scorer's desk again. Talk me through her body language again and how she's communicating. Obviously, we're talking about an English speaking. She's Australian, just so you know. So, and as far as I know, doesn't speak Portuguese.
Do you know, I know it feels like a little bit like she's asking for their permission to say what she's going to say. It doesn't strike me as confident.
Yeah, that confidence in delivery. Yeah. Who's now talking?
The assistant.
And there are occasions where assistants will talk on behalf of players, or not on behalf, that's the wrong way of putting it, but are able to vocalize things which the players are communicating to them. The relationship between an assistant and a player is incredibly intimate. So I don't want to take away from that. However, the level of dialogue is probably not what is being communicated by the player to the assistant for translation.
Like she's not doing anything with confidence, is she? She's not doing anything with authority.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's hard because, you know, you've done just big mistakes. So, you know, everybody of us, each of us will, you know, it's difficult to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because you want to do right by the players, and if the mistake is on you, you want to rectify it for the good of the players. And again, just remember that whole disclosure bit at the start of what we're trying to unpick, and we're seeing this in almost a clinical environment. And what we have to remember is that emotional element, that pressure that's building, and her wanting to do right by the players. So that's a good point, Michaela. Thank you. So there we go. Hands up, calling for the referee. This has now been, from the original violation, this has now been going on for just short of 4 minutes before the hand goes up for the head referee. Again, how do we do this with confidence? How do we call the head referee with confidence? Oh, if it was a big venue.
Or keep your hand up, stay in court.
That's the lines person. Yeah.
Run around flapping on the pitch.
Yeah. So this is Alan. Alan is a Canadian, Quebecian, French-speaking assistant head referee.
What they've done, they repeated the end, or they rearranged the situation, or?
We'll find out. We'll find out. We're on tenterhooks.
She's got the head back together, hasn't she?
Not at this point. She hasn't repositioned the head. She's removed the fouling ball.
17 minutes in the end you played as well.
But now the
17
assistant
minutes.
referee talking to the assistant as well, not to the player.
Yeah, there may well be, because of translation, he's trying to get that. I mean, he is. There's a difference between a referee talking to the assistant to make sure the communication is clear and an assistant talking to the referee, I would say. But yes, it is a subtle difference. Okay, I'm going to make this twice speed. I think will be good.
Didn't they have the overhead camera to know where all the balls were on the pitch during the tournament?
You're not allowed to use that though.
Yeah, we can't use that. A couple of reasons why is, one, it is just a perspective, and unless it is, directly over the jack, then it is only an angle that you're receiving. You're not able to get the exact position. And secondly, it's not at every competition. It's not part of every competition. You can't really have it at one and not another. We had this in football with VAR and goal line technology, and it was I think it was the Champions League. They ended up with goal line officials, didn't they, for a couple of seasons? But we didn't have that in the Premier League because we couldn't actually do it in every single game. And now we're getting the head referee on, Spanish speaking. So hopefully that will help with the communication.
She was very forceful.
I had breakfast with her.
You don't argue with her. She's very forceful. She is.
A debate.
Dan knows which ones.
No,
Okay, so here we go. Here's the first look at the. I talked about positioning. Difference between good and great. Where has she positioned herself?
She's positioned herself between the players at their height, lower than them, so she's not talking down to them; she's speaking to them.
But also in line with the assistants, not behind the assistants.
Yeah,
she has moved up into the boxes. Yeah, it makes it a little bit cramped, a little bit awkward because you're pretty close. That is a great referee there. Not just a good referee, just that movement in gives you own that environment, even though it's their boxes. You are dominating the area to get your messaging across. You are making sure that the assistants aren't turning into court because they're just turning to you. You're in front of them. They're just
feels more like she's telling them what's happening rather than sort of guessing it.
Yeah. And again, obviously, it's really hard for us to know exactly what's being said. We're doing this from a different perspective to being right there at that moment. But you feel, with her body language and her communication, even though we don't know what was said, that an authority has just been stamped on the situation, yes?
Yeah.
But yet the head is still not fixed. And we are now, how far? We are now 11 minutes since the head was moved. And Teresa, at this stage, because the referee can't remember positions, none of us could, for 11 minutes, is now having to communicate with players. This is actually one of the very few areas in the rules where we do not need sign off by the players. The positioning should be by the head referee, and you can communicate with the person, with the player who has been wronged in the situation, who is lost through the mistake of the referee. But it is always your decision. You do not need to clarify it with them. So she's gone in, she's made a decision, she's talked to them, and she's walked off. This is a replay. But we still chat. Maybe she's coming back for something. Now what have we got? 324, 304, we have assistants talking to assistants, because at this point, especially, thinking about the languages that we've got there, we have English, we've got French, we have Spanish, we have Portuguese, we've got Australian, shall we say. We've got 5 odd languages, all 4 or 5 languages being spoken to try and communicate the same thing, and 11 minutes has gone through. What I want to focus on now is the referee's body language. This is the first end. She still has 3 more ends to officiate after this.
A long night.
And whilst we're doing this, I'm just going to read a couple of notes. I asked Lauren if, first of all, she knows that we're using this and kind of run it by here. And I did ask it from Lauren is the liner, if you haven't picked up, who made the call incredibly quickly. But I asked her about how it affected the relationship between her going on and what that was, got referee back on for the positioning. But she said that the relationship between her and the referee after events, it just said there was more eye contact between us, but there hadn't been much eye contact up until that point. But it was awkward all the way through the rest of the game. He said that not very much was said between ends, other than things like, looking forward to this being over. 2 minutes or 2 ends to go, 1 more to get through. Things like that is what's been said. Then I asked about how do you think it affected the rest of the match from a refereeing point of view? Was she able to settle into being a referee? How did that management go? They said it took some time to settle. It was never completely forgotten at any point. By the 3rd end, it got easier until the tie break came around. When the tie break came around, which added the pressure, those cracks started to appear again. So, again, I know I've said this multiple times, I just really want to be clear. I'm not picking on this referee for any reason other than this is something that we can talk about. We can empathize with as well. Like we can understand that situation that we're in, but we could possibly see that maybe the body language meant that strong ownership of the court was lost pretty much straight away. And that was partly because the procedure was wrong, not just once the violation was committed, but actually before it was. She was watching the ball, not the liner. If the eyes were on the liner, that call would have been made. She was in a better position than she was earlier, and she probably, hopefully, she should have made that interception before it got anywhere. There was a good 2 or 3 seconds from when that ball hit. Following that, then her procedures went a little bit wrong. Once the hand went up, she went and collected the ball and put it to one side. Okay, you could do that first. I would always reposition straight away, because that's the bit you're going to forget. So you go back into the position that you were stood in, you look back to the head, and you look to reposition. And this is one of the things that we're going to really focus on in the second part in the new year, is on procedure. How do we get those things right? Because we're going to see the importance of that in a moment. The communication, as Lawrence testified, really kind of wasn't there. And I think a few of you noticed as well that talked with the liner initially, and then there wasn't much dialogue after that, even though actually the liner was the one that was, eyes onto the court and potentially could have helped in that situation. Body language, procedure, communication all meant really that confidence that the referee had, and the confidence in the referee that the players had was broken, was lost, and that is really hard to get again, to pick up again. Really hard. We're not going to go into breakout rooms because I'm really conscious of time. We had a really good discussion there, and I think we've probably picked up most of the points that I wanted to draw out, so thank you for that. The bit that I want to finish on tonight is this idea of managing pressure. the mantra that I have in my head when I'm a referee is, I am probably right. And I don't mean that with a question mark at the end of I'm probably right. I mean, I am probably right. I am the referee and I have confidence in what I'm doing and the decisions and the procedures that I'm going through. However, we all make mistakes. And if you always allow for that caveat of we make mistakes, then it means that you don't end up in a situation where you are overconfident. And in this situation, what you saw was that confidence tumble. However, I've seen the opposite, where a referee is always right, 100% right, could never be wrong. And what does that do? Well, that riles the players, that riles the assistants, that gets emotions up, that heats the environment rather than cools the environment. And that equally doesn't help either. So have the confidence, but allow yourself that space to make a mistake. So you can say with confidence, I am probably right. And if you have that mantra going into a game, you'll really, really help in your thought process as you start to officiate more. And there are a few things that I do, and I'm going to speak personally at this point. This isn't something you'll find in any court or any training manual. These are things that I find help. Well, two of the things I find that really helps. Breathe, hum, and focus. Talk about this very briefly. Breathing. As you can imagine, breathing is important, but we probably all recognize it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know taking deep breaths calms us down. We can do that on the court. We can do that as we are refereeing. We can do that at the beginning of each end. 5 long breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. No one knows it's happening. Your blood pressure will even out a little bit. Your heart rate will drop. You will feel a calmness coming over you by doing this. This isn't just some pseudo psychology. Then this is what I do. What I don't do is hum. There is quite a bit of neuroscience evidence that humming can bring a sense of calm because of the way that humming connects both vocal box, ears, your heart and your lungs. And there's a sense that it comes, there's a nerve called the wandering nerve. And it's a wandering nerve because it moves all the way around the body. People don't really know what it's there for, but it's stimulated when you hum or you sing. Singing you can't really do, but humming you maybe can, probably not in a bocce court. And the third one is focus. And obviously that might be obvious in some senses, but I'll break down what that means in a second. So managing pressure, breathe and focus. This is what I do. I take 5-second belly breath through my nose and hold it for a second and exhale through my nose and repeat 3 times at the start of every end. Before a long measure or important when I'm bringing the players out, I will do this to make sure that I am in the best position to be able to make a good measure. I'll breathe. The focus element is to break down the tasks that you have into small parts and prioritize. Multitasking doesn't work. I know there's a whole gender debate around this. The reality is the neuroscience is some people are better at it than others, but multitasking doesn't work. Your brain can only really do one thing at a time. And therefore, when you're multitasking, it's switching between those 2 tasks. And if you're good at it, then it switches really quickly. And people who aren't as good at multitasking, it switches more slowly. But the reality is you can only do one thing and your brain switches between it. Well, what happens when you have this multitasking is you become overstimulated and your brain actually floods your body with stress hormones. And that's where your heart rate starts to come up. So this is where you need to break down those small, the task into small parts. The example that we just saw there, I said that I would redo the head. I would know what my procedure was to redo the head because I prioritized. I know that's what I'm going to forget. If I know which ball it was, then I can leave that till later. The next thing I need to do is communicate with the players almost instantly so they know exactly what's happening. With authority and empathy, because someone has just been violated, so emotions are going to be higher. And with good communication with my liner. What that communication with the liner does is give confidence in the players that it has actually happened, that both parties have seen it, or that you've got that information, and making sure that that is in there. And then go through, once you've got that priority list, go through that each step one by one. Now, this is a lot easier to say than to do. It's a lot easier to say, oh, you just break down your task into small parts, prioritize it, go through them one by one, and you're fine. But actually, that's going to be the focus of the second session, process thinking. This is what we're going to cover in the new year. We're going to look at several different things, measuring being one of them, and complex measuring being one of them, and really break down the process of measuring. Not is it a good measure or a bad measure? What are actually the fundamental steps that, again, take you from being a good referee to a great referee? And that's people who can break things down live in real time into different small steps and really be able to process the action that they're doing. So it is 8:34. I want to say a massive thank you for your contributions tonight. I really hope if we go back to the curve that we talked about and David shared so honestly with us at the start of the evening, that some of the stuff that we've talked about will start to see you move up that curve to guru status. The match analysis stuff is there to be a tool to get you back into get your eye back into refereeing, to get you thinking in this critical mode. But ultimately, what I want you to do is to take things away that you can apply into your own practice as a referee. And next time, that's where you can join me and Tony for process thinking in the new year. I'll stick around for any questions and I'll let Natalie jump in a second. But from me, thank you very much. Thank you for your contributions. These things really don't work if people don't contribute. So I do really value that. Natalie, is there anything I need to cover, or are there any questions in the chat? And if anyone else has got a question, then feel free to come off mute and ask me that in a second after Natalie's wrapped up.
Just a thank you to you, Richard, and everyone else for attending. Hopefully you remembered what it's like to be a referee. We've had a little whistle-stop tour, brought it back to our memories. And I will follow up with an email tomorrow with a few bits. We'll circulate the slides and things and send the link round to that video, perhaps if people want to spend a little bit more time watching it even. And then, as Richard said, the second session that we're referring to is on the 10th of February. So hope to see you all at that one as well.